Hello, future educators. How are you? Today we're going to have a review of the survey of English and American literature. But before that, let me introduce myself. I am Miss Shiela Mae Eisma and I will be your instructor for today. Now I will give the instruction for this review. I will read the questions and choices twice. The correct answer will flash on the screen. After that, I will give a brief explanation on why it is the correct answer. Do you understand? Now, are you ready? Number 1. A product of Old English literature. It is said that this piece of literature is an elegy rather than an epic, a literature that is translated to a numerous language. What is the title of this literature? Again, a product of Old English literature, it is said that this piece of literature is an elegy rather than an epic, a literature that is translated to a numerous language. What is the title of this literature? Letter A, The Canterbury Tales, B, Beowulf, C, The Wanderer, D, The Battle of Maldon. Letter A, The Canterbury Tales, B, Beowulf, C, The Wanderer, D, The Battle of Maldon. Now, let's see the answer to this question. The correct answer is letter B, Beowulf. Why? Because its status as the oldest surviving long poem in the English language makes it a foundational text for Anglo-Saxon literature and culture. It is a window into the values, beliefs, and literary traditions of the time, offering insight into the Anglo-Saxon worldview and heroic ideals. Number 2. One of the first English poets, a great poet even before Shakespeare. He is called as first finder of our language. He has a massive contributions in the 14th century, being a courtier, a diplomat, and a civil servant. His most famous masterpiece is the Canterbury Tales. Who is this author? Letter A, Geoffrey Chaucer, B, William Langland, C, John Grower, D, Thomas Malory. The correct answer is letter A, Geoffrey Chaucer. Since he served as a courtier and a diplomat and a civil servant, he became the trusted and aided by 3 successive kings, Edward III, Richard II, and Henry IV. But it is his avocation, the writing of poetry, for which he is remembered. Now, let's move to number 3. You are a literature student tasked with analyzing the theme of ambition and its consequences for a class essay. Your professor gives you 4 options of text to compare and asks you to choose the one that best mirrors the psychological unraveling of a protagonist due to unchecked ambition, similar to Shakespeare's Macbeth. Which of the following text would be the most appropriate choice for comparison based on this criterion? Letter A, Jane Eyre by Charlotte Bronte, B, Frankenstein by Mary Shelley, C, Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen, D, The Canterbury Tales by Geoffrey Chaucer. The correct answer is letter B, Frankenstein by Mary Shelley. Frankenstein is the best comparative choice because, like Macbeth, it centers on a protagonist, Victor Frankenstein, whose unchecked ambition leads to catastrophic consequences. Both characters pursue power, and both suffer personal and moral collapse as a result. The psychological unraveling and eventual downfall make Frankenstein an ideal parallel for exploring ambition's darker effects. Jane Eyre, on the other hand, deals more with personal integrity and love rather than destructive ambition. Pride and Prejudice focuses on social class, marriage, and personal growth, while the Canterbury Tales include various themes and characters but does not focus primarily on the unraveling caused by ambition. Let's move now to number 4. Which of the following novels most directly critiques the effects of industrialization on human relationships and social structures in 19th century England? A, Wuthering Heights, B, Great Expectations, C, Hard Times, D, Test of the Urbervilles. The correct answer is letter C, Hard Times. Because it is Dickens' most direct and pointed critique of the industrial era in England. Set in fictional industrial town of Coketown, the novel explores how utilitarian education, factory labor, and economic rationalism dehumanize individuals and erode compassion and imagination. Characters like Thomas Gradgrind and Stephen Blackpool illustrate the social cost of industrial capitalism. while Wuthering Heights is a gothic novel focused more on personal obsession and generational conflict than on social critique. While Great Expectation, on the other hand, deals with themes of personal growth, social class, and moral redemption, but its critique of society is broader and less centered on industrialization. Tales of the Urber Bills, on the other hand, critiques Victorian morality and social injustice, particularly around gender and class, but it is more pastoral than industrial in focus. Number 5. You are participating in a literary debate where the theme is the role of setting in shaping character development. You are assigned to defend a work in which the setting is not just a backdrop, but a driving force in the protagonist's transformation. Which of the following works provides the strongest support for your argument? Letter A. Hamlet by William Shakespeare. B. The Great Gatsby by F. Scott Fitzgerald. C. Heart of Darkness by Joseph Conrad. Or letter D. The Importance of Being Earnest by Oscar Wilde. The correct answer is letter C. Heart of Darkness. In Heart of Darkness, the setting, or the Congo River and African interior, is central to the psychological transformation of the protagonist Marlowe and to the descent of Kurtz. The wilderness acts as both a literal, symbolic landscape that strips away civilization, revealing the darkness within the human soul. The setting shapes every aspect of the narrative in the character's moral and existential reflections. On the other hand, Hamlet deals more with internal conflict, with the setting of Denmark being symbolic but not as transformative. The Great Gatsby uses setting symbolically, but character development is driven more by desire and illusion than environment. The Importance of Being Earnest is a comedy of manners. The setting is social rather than environmental and does not significantly shape character development. Now let's move to number 6. You are writing a research paper on how the American dream is portrayed as both a motivating force and a source of disillusionment in literature. Your professor asks you to select a novel that best illustrates the conflict between idealism and reality in the pursuit of success. Which of the following works would be the most appropriate to analyze in your paper? Letter A. The Scarlet Letter by Nathaniel Hawthorne. B. The Grapes of Wrath by John Steinbeck. C. The Great Gatsby by F. Scott Fitzgerald. Or letter D. To Kill a Mockingbird by Harper Lee. The correct answer is letter C. The Great Gatsby by F. Scott Fitzgerald. It highlights the clash between idealized aspirations and the harsh realities of social mobility and the pursuit of success. Gatsby's relentless pursuit of Daisy, fueled by his idealized vision of the past and a desire for a better future, ultimately leads to his downfall, demonstrating how the pursuit of a dream, when divorced from reality, can be destructive. Let's move to number 7. You're preparing for a panel discussion on narrative voice and reliability in American literature. Your task is to select a novel in which the first-person narrator's limited or biased perspective significantly shapes the reader's understanding of the story and its themes. Which of the following novels would provide the strongest example for your argument? Letter A. Moby Dick by Henry Melville. B. The Catcher in the Rye by J.D. Salinger. C. Beloved by Toni Morrison. Or letter D. Of Mice and Men by John Steinbeck. The correct answer is letter B. The Catcher in the Rye by J.D. Salinger. The Catcher in the Rye is narrated by Holden Caulfield, a deeply subjective and emotionally unstable teenager. His first-person narration is marked by bias, emotional distortion, and selective memory, which makes him a classic example of an unreliable narrator. This limited perspective is essential to understanding the novel's themes of alienation, trauma, and the struggle against adult hypocrisy. Moby Dick, on the other hand, uses Ishmael as a narrator, but his account is generally reflective and philosophical, not unreliable in the same psychological sense. Beloved uses multiple perspectives and narrative fragmentation, but it's not strictly first person and doesn't hinge on narrator unreliability on the same way. Of Mice and Men is written in third person and focuses on objective narration, not a biased or limited personal point of view. Number 8. Which of the following American literary works most effectively explores the theme of racial injustice through a child's perspective using innocence to highlight societal prejudice? Letter A. The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn by Mark Twain. B. To Kill a Mockingbird by Harper Lee. C. Invisible Man by Ralph Ellison. Or letter D. Native Son by Richard Wright. Correct answer is letter B. To Kill a Mockingbird is narrated by Scout Finch, a young girl growing up in the racially segregated South during the 1930s. Through Scout's innocent perspective, the novel highlights the deep injustice of racial prejudice, especially in the courtroom trial of Tom Robinson, a black man falsely accused of assaulting a white woman. The use of a child narrator emphasizes the irrationality and cruelty of racism by constructing it with a natural sense of fairness and morality. On the other hand, The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn does not critic racism, but it uses satire and focuses more on moral development than institutional justice. Invisible Man explores racial identity and social invisibility from a deeply introspective and mature point of view. Native Son tackles systemic racism and poverty with a stark, powerful adult perspective, not true childhood innocence. Number 9. Which of the following American novels offers the most direct critique of materialism and the illusion of the American dream during the Jazz Age? Letter A. The Sun Also Rises by Ernest Hemingway. B. The Great Gatsby by F. Scott Fitzgerald. C. The Age of Innocence by Edith Wharton. Or letter D. The Red Badge of Courage by Stephen Crane. The correct answer is letter B. The Great Gatsby by F. Scott Fitzgerald. Because it is a powerful critique of the American dream, particularly as it was reshaped during the 1920s Jazz Age. Through the story of Jay Gatsby, a self-made millionaire chasing a dream rooted in wealth, status, and lost love, Fitzgerald exposes the emptiness behind material success and the moral decay hidden beneath the glamour of the roaring 20s. On the other hand, The Sun Also Rises focuses more on the disillusionment of the lost generation after World War I than materialism specifically. The Age of Innocence critiques rigid social norms and class structures in Gilded Age New York, but not the American dream of economic success. Lastly, The Red Patch of Courage deals with fear and courage in the context of war, not the themes of wealth or materialism. This is the last question for this review. Which of the following American literary works best examines the psychological impact of slavery and the legacy of trauma on African American identity after the Civil War? Letter A. Uncle Tom's Cabin by Harriet Beecher Stowe. B. The Souls of Black Folk by W.E.B. Du Bois. C. Beloved by Toni Morrison. Or D. Their Eyes Were Watching God by Zora Neale Hurston. The correct answer is letter C, Beloved by Toni Morrison, because it powerfully explores the psychological scars left by slavery. Set after the Civil War, the novel focuses on Seth, a formerly enslaved woman haunted by the trauma of her past and the literal ghost of her dead child. Morrison blends historical reality with magical realism to portray how slavery's horrors persist in memory and identity long after physical emancipation. On the other hand, Uncle Tom's Cabin is an anti-slavery novel that steered political activism but lacks the psychological depth and post-emancipation focus on Beloved. The Souls of Black Folk is a groundbreaking sociological and philosophical work, not a novel, though it also explores African identity. Their Eyes Were Watching God focuses more on gender, love, and independence in early 20th century Black life rather than slavery's legacy. Now you're here in the last part of our video. Thank you for joining our review, and till next time. I'm your Mom Shiela Mae Eisma again, and good luck, future educators!